This podcast is brought to you by Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate, powered by Kangaroo Fern Media Lab. Kangaroo Fern is Australia's independent video and podcast management agency with a mission to help individuals and entrepreneurs to start their own podcasts and harness the power of podcasting.
A Kangaroo Fern production.
A Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate. Samu't Sari Conversation with Mimi, to connect with other women who may need someone to talk to around everyday's life issues and challenges, from managing career and household to inner productivity, relationships, and other hot topics. Samu't Sari Conversation with Mimi.
Hello and welcome to Samu't Sari Conversations with Mimi, featuring hot topics and other topics of interest for men and women alike. We feature guests who share their passion and commitment to their profession and talents. And here at Samu't Sari, we share stories to inspire you, stories from ordinary people who make extraordinary things. Today, mga kaibigan, mga kababayan, we have a special edition of Samu't Sari. We are not doing the regular show format because this is a special public service online show entitled Ugnayan at Damayan, together with our officials from the Embassy of the Philippines in New Zealand. We have a special relationship with our embassy officials, and I'm really, really grateful that they are here today to spend a little bit of their time with us and to share their knowledge and expertise and to update us on what's happening in our country in New Zealand. And of course, Jamie, if you may, go to the next slide. I have with me a very special co-host for today's show as well. And he's my good friend also in New Zealand, and his name is Mar Esparas. So I'm going to introduce Mar later on. We will talk about what Mar is doing, and I'm going to also introduce myself because I'm sure marami pa sa inyo ang hindi nakakakilala po sa akin. Who am I? Why am I doing this show, and why did we invite very important people in our embassy in New Zealand for this special show? So for those who are tuning in, our agenda for today is to get some updates from obviously ang inyong lingkod na mga representante ng ating pamahalaan sa Pilipinas in New Zealand, His Excellency Ambassador Jesus Domingo, and also the Labor Attaché from the Polo Office of New Zealand, Mr. Angel Borja. So they will be joining us later on. And we also have prepared some questions that they will be responding to later in the show. So Jamie is my volunteer. She is a Master of Social Work here at Federation University in Australia. She just finished. She has an interest in obviously social work and legal law things. That's why she's here. She's very interested about our topic. So thank you, Jamie, for helping us organize this show. So can you move to the next slide, Jamie? And just to explain who am I and what is Samu't Sari, what is the mission and vision of the show. As mentioned here, my name is Mimi Laurilia. I am a Kiwi Noy, Filipino Kiwi, New Zealand citizen, passionate about helping the community. But I currently live and work here in Australia with my family. So I'm trying to bridge the gap between the neighboring countries, New Zealand and Australia. And my Samu't Sari show for this season, the first year, started in May. And I want to be of service to obviously the OFWs, the Filipinos all over the world, wherever you are, Philippines, New Zealand. We even have a person listening to us from Sudan.
Are you a podcaster who's getting frustrated because your show results are not in your favor? Are you losing hope because you feel like podcasting doesn't help you generate income? Are you a podcast service provider who is struggling to meet your clients' expectations? If yes, head on to www.podkai.com. Book a call with the founder of Podkai Media, Kai Villanueva, and get clear and proven strategies to earn through podcasting.
In Africa. So wherever you are po, saan man tayo sa mundo, I want Samu't Sari to be a show that helps us be updated with everything that's happening in our lives and topics of interest, whether it's pangkabuhayan, it's to inspire you from experiences of other people. So I am a member po of the Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate. It's the Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate. We have podcasters from the Philippines, and we also have podcasters from Australia. So if you want to become a member of the Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate, let me know po, or I'll link you up with our podcasting president, Vico Santos, who is, by the way, also from Wellington. So he now lives in Adelaide. So thank you, Miko, for inviting me to become a part of the syndicate. And now I am able to bring Ugnayan at Damayan to the world. So Jamie, next slide, please. I want to also introduce Mar. Mar is a good friend of mine in Wellington. Marami po kami pinagsamahan ni Mar. Marami po kami mga community activities. But Mar, I hand over the mic to you to say hello to everyone and explain to them everything that you're doing at the moment in New Zealand.
Hi, good day. Narito po tayo sa New Zealand at representing the Night of Rizal Wellington chapter. We are a volunteered organization here in Wellington, but we are legally mandated by the Philippine government with the Republic Act for doing some community works and helping our kababayan and even regardless of ethnicity dito po sa ating lugar sa Wellington. Not only Wellington but within the neighboring cities. And then that's it. Narito po tayo at matagal na po kami nagsama ni Mimi. When I was then the former Kasagip Charitable Trust Chairman, marami na po kami ding mga activities, projects na nagawa. Okay, Mimi, hi, and Jamie and His Excellency Ambassador Gary. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mar. And of course, tatanggalin ko na yung slide presentation natin kasi gusto kong makilala at makita ng ating mga nanonood sa atin, everybody who's listening to us, our dear beloved Ambassador Gary Domingo. Hello to you, sir. Please greet our viewers and listeners and welcome them to the show.
Okay. Kia ora, good day, Mimi, Sir Mar, Miss Jamie, and to our listeners all over the world. Again, kia ora from Wellington, New Zealand. Maraming salamat, Mimi, sa inyong invitation sa amin to join you on the show. And assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to our listeners in Sudan. Nako, talagang worldwide. And greetings to the, I love this name, Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate.
Yes.
Okay. I think this is a sindicato. It's safe for me to join also. Pwede ba?
Hi, of course, sir. Of course, you're welcome to join. We are actually looking for more people to create the content. So we are content creators. Meron po tayong mga content creators who are focused on business, in finance, in lifestyle, in social media marketing, financial coaching. Ako naman po is just trying to be like a future Oprah of the Philippines,
Okay.
a future Corina Sanchez. Nangangarap lang po. Nangangarap lang na sa pamamagitan po ng ating communication skills ay magkaroon tayo ng konting contribution online through public service and through the guests of the show. So, Gary, I think it's now time for us to really share some updates from the embassy, and I think this is Mar's turn to shine. So, Mar, I want you to, really, bridge the gap between the busy people living in New Zealand na sa sobrang kabisihan na nila, parang hindi na nila nalalaman kung anong mga ibang happenings natin, in the Philippine space, in our Filipino community. So I leave the floor now to you and obviously Gary to discuss some updates from New Zealand.
Okay, Mimi, thank you. Magandang hapon uli at magandang araw sa iyo, His Excellency Ambassador Gary Domingo of the Philippines to New Zealand. Gary, we are aware that in your role, you are here in New Zealand to represent our country, Philippines, in many matters related to social, cultural, and political interests of our country in relation to our diplomatic ties with New Zealand.
Mhm.
In your time here as ambassador, what are some of your key programs, projects, and activities that you are able to implement or carry out, especially uh, uh, also with our PhilCom, Filipino communities, and also, and I know that you are our area commander of the Knight of Rizal here in Wellington, doing some uh, Rizalism and his brand of Filipino nationalism. Sir.
Okay, maraming salamat, Sir Mar. So, siguro, konting background kung ano to talagang papel ng isang ambassador or isang pasuguan. So, the Department of Foreign Affairs is the agency ng ating pamahalan that is in charge of relations with the whole world, buong daigdig. And we do that through our 90 missions, which are either embassies, consulates, or missions.
Your podcast journey starts here. Take the first step on your side. Hustle with us. It starts with a great domain. Get your podcast web host with Beard and Coffee at www.beardandcoffee.com.au or find us at Facebook.
Dito sa New Zealand, we have the Philippine Embassy in Wellington, and we have 2 honorary consulates in Auckland and Christchurch. Sa Australia naman, we have the Embassy in Canberra and 2 consulates in Melbourne and Sydney, and many honorary consulates. Bukod pa sa New Zealand, sa aking jurisdiction ay yung mga ibang island countries of Samoa, Fiji, Tonga, Cook Islands, and by extension also Niue, with oversight of French Polynesia. So siguro yung trabaho ko ay may dalawang parte. Yung Philippine relations with the country of New Zealand, but most importantly is taking care of our overseas Filipinos. Philippine foreign policy has 4 parts or 4 pillars. Ang pinakauna and pinakamahalaga ay protection of the rights and welfare of overseas Filipinos. Pangalawa, national security or the traditional government-to-government relations. Pangatlo, economic security or economic diplomacy, promoting trade, investment, tourism, agriculture, technology. And fourth, cultural diplomacy, sharing our culture and language. So basically, our relations are excellent. In 2016, when I arrived, we celebrated the 50th anniversary. And in commemoration, gumawa kami ng mural, which you see.
Yes, believe nga ako sa mural, ang mga Gary. Impressed na impressed ako.
Thank you. But so we've had very good relations, not just one-on-one with New Zealand, but also as ASEAN, the family of Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Now, on that side of country-to-country relations, since Philippines hosted ASEAN in 2018, I had the privilege of accompanying Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern as she represented New Zealand, and she had a dialogue with President Duterte. President Duterte also had passed by New Zealand in 2016 on his way back to Peru for the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. So in 2018, also Prime Minister Ardern was accompanied by then Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Winston Peters. So also we're very proud that we had a full-blooded and Philippine-born Filipino Kiwi, Paulo Garcia, who made it to the New Zealand Parliament for the 2017 to 2020 term, and he at that time was the only Filipino, full-blooded Filipino, to make it to a national parliament of a country outside the Philippines. We beat Australia. So far, wala pa. There have been candidates, pero wala pa. Even US up to now, wala pang full-blooded or Filipino-born candidate na nanalo sa US Congress or Senate. The only other countries were Canada and South Korea. But of course, lamang ang Australia sa dami mga konsehal, especially around Blacktown. And many of them are
Mm.
also our brothers in the Knights of Rizal. Um, and I just like to say hi, shout out to Cesar Bartolome, our regional commander, our ating bossing from Sydney, and our brother Knights, and to my also brothers and sisters in our embassy, Ambassador Helen Barbers, and in Canberra. Okay, so now, however, I notice we're still lagging behind in trade and investment compared to the other ASEAN countries. We have a big trade deficit, over $600 million annually of New Zealand dairy export. Di ba lahat tayo lumaki sa Angkor butter, di ba?
Yes.
But our economic footprint with New Zealand is not trade industry or, it's manpower, people. So again, New Zealand is so dependent on Filipino workers in dairy industry, farming, construction, and also earlier wave. These are more recent, as you know, more recent migrant workers. But before and up to now, very strong in among care sector, nurses, other health professionals. But all around, we have managers in banks, other enterprises, IT. We're very strong. And we are a total of 80,000. I think kayo, sa Australia, you're about what? Pinoys are about 300,000 or so?
Yeah, almost
So?
nearing the 500 mark. Yeah.
Okay. So now I guess it overlaps then with the working with the Filipino community. So, well, Mimi, if you're going to be the future Oprah, I'm aspiring to be the Kuya Germs.
Oh, di ba?
So
Walang tulugan.
walang tulugan. And what I mean by that is, talagang papasalamat ako sa inyong invitation sa amin because to reach out to the 80,000 and to the New Zealand audience, we have to really go with social media. Mahilig ako mag-post sa Facebook, sa aming website, and Mel Fernandez produces a great newspaper for the Filipino community.
That's right, yeah.
But we really need to really maximize social media. So in the new year, I don't want to give it away, but abangan yung mga ibang pakulo namin, especially New Year's. We're going to have a New Year's countdown. And so maybe I can plug, now maybe I can segue now, Sir Mar, if I may.
Yeah.
I think one of your questions, of course, yung kaduktundon is, what are we doing with the Filipino community?
Yes.
Yeah.
So really our greatest asset in the Philippine-New Zealand relationship, ang ating overseas Filipino community and OFW community of 80,000. So out of a population of 5 million, we are 1.5%. We are a similar ratio dun sa US. We have 4 million Pinoys, but out of a population of over 300 million. So but in a way, I think we in Australia and New Zealand, parang lamang tayo, I think, than our mga kapatid sa US, because at least we made it to the parliament here. And I think
That's right.
I think in relative terms, mas maganda din yung political and media showing ng mga ating mga Phil Aussies, di ba? Now I don't want to compare, but I think now so one of our, well, right now I think we have to see if kung makakabol si Labat, because right now he is in the middle of being part of our consular mobile team in Dunedin in the South Island. Very beautiful city, but very busy. I mean, very busy with the consular mission. So I can cover, just in case hindi siya makahabol, I can give some highlights about Polo. But it's a blessing. He's with us. The Polo opened to the clamor of the OFWs here last November. We just celebrated our first year anniversary. And before, New Zealand ay hawak ng ating Polo sa Canberra. But it was so overworked kasi laki-laki ng Australia.
That's
But
right.
so we were buti lang President Duterte and Secretary Bebot Bello, Secretary of Labor and Employment, answered our call and plea for a polo. And then it's really a blessing kasi si Labat Angel, truly a guardian angel. Kasi magkasama kami sa Saudi noon, nung nasa Saudi ako, from 1998 to 2002. And he's also our brother Knight of Rizal. Okay, so of course our number one duty is to our kababayan. So we've have, despite, so after yung lockdown, so umiikot kami sa buong New Zealand because although we have the embassy here, as you know, in Wellington, we only have about between 8-10,000 Pinoys. At least half, around 30 to 40,000 ay nasa Auckland, which is a 9 hours drive or 1 hour plane.
That's
So,
right.
but scattered all over the country. So, meron kaming, like in the case of Australia, meron kaming mga mobile missions. Umiikot kami sa iba-ibang.
So you want to start a podcast? Or perhaps you've already started one, but you're still unclear on how you can actually make this podcasting work. No worries. That's why we're here for you. We are Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate, powered by Kangaroo Fern Media Lab. Join our network. Contact us at info@kangaroofern.com because we're stronger together.
Iba-ibang lungsod, iba-ibang probinsya ng New Zealand. And bukod pa doon, nagmi-mission din kami sa aming islands, Cook Islands, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga. Pero yung pagpunta namin sa ibang islands ay nahinto dahil yung closed borders. But hopefully we can have a bubble at least with Cook Islands maybe in the coming weeks. So because of COVID, well, ikukwento ni Labat kung anong side niya. But sa our side namin so as you know, most of us sa mga embassies and consulate ay taga Department of Foreign Affairs. So ang kino-coordinate ng DFA, sa DFA side dito sa New Zealand is our repatriation. So daming din repatriation. Australian daming repatriation, and we have a very good partnership with Philippine Airlines. The country head is our bro Rael Israel Fontanilla up in Auckland. He's listening. Hello. So we've had 4 repatriation flights, totaling almost 600. Of course, I don't think that's as big as, let's say, other countries, but it's so we've had most of them, of course, ay taga New Zealand, pero meron ding taga yung ibang islands, Fiji, Cook Islands, Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, and even French Polynesia. So we are having another flight. PAL, so who's interested, please log on to the PAL website on December 18 from Auckland to Manila. So that flight also brings Filipinos and Kiwis from Philippines to New Zealand. Although mahigpit, so they're prioritizing, of course, New Zealand citizens, permanent residents, and Filipinos who are essential workers, especially nurses. Okay. So we remain open, pero limited hours, 10 to 3 p.m. in light of, although more or less we are managing COVID very well, we're still on alert level 1, so make social distancing, hindi basta-bastang pwede, and then you have to go on online appointment. So Sir Mar, so on that first point, that is our bread and butter services. May mga tanong dyan before I go into our other community activities?
Singit lang ako, Gary. You mentioned that yung mga island neighbors, matatawag ba yun, o mga nasasakupan ng New Zealand, what are the common, what do you call that, common things na very active sila based on your visits and based on the feedback na ginagawa nyo, the situation on COVID in general? Because those are tiny islands, and I'm assuming na ang mga Pilipino din doon ay very solid din. So there must be some initiatives. So what's the general climate of the situation of the Filipinos in Cook Islands, Vanuatu, Niue, etc.?
Yeah, they're mostly okay, doing fine. Of course, may ang problem, and same with mainland New Zealand, ay yung mga nalalay off. But it was not as bad as we thought. We thought actually we would be getting more and more demand for repatriation, but buti na lang, the New Zealand government is very kind and had a wage subsidy, which is basically funding for mga companies to help them pay para mabayaran mga sweldo ng mga workers. And, mapapilayan talagang New Zealand kung mas uwian ang mga workers natin. In fact, there's still need for the continuation kasi maraming din namalas, nagbakasyon, and dahil sarado yung border. So, but anyway, to the islands, I think generally they're fine. Those who are residents, some are even citizens, but yung mga work visa status muna, yung iba na lay off. So again, we've had almost over 60 from Fiji, almost 30 from Cook Islands, Tonga, 10-10 lang yung ibang islands. But some were really hard up. Buti na lang, nagpapasalamat kami sa Philcom. Kinupkup nila and they fed them, housed them. But also some were seamen who who got stranded dahil sa barko nila. They were forced to disembark, but we were able to help them transition back to the
Yeah.
Philippines. So yeah, I guess that's a generally fine, okay. But yung iba na lay off and kailangan umuwi, which we assisted.
Okay. Thank you, Amba. So you can carry on and continue to update us, please.
Okay. Well, yun nga, marami kaming plano, especially with Knights of Rizal. I think Sir Mar, pwede niya ikwento yung mga aming joint and activities. But like what I was saying, yung sabi ko na pangarap ko ay maging yung Kuya Germs in the sense that I want to help Filipino Kiwi talents to really shine. So I am calling on mga Filipino singers, performers, comedians, dancers to give me a good video na ipapalabas ko sa embassy social media. So, and we will feature them in our New Year's countdown. And the point is, kasi, we have a lot of talent, kaya lang, mahiyan tayo. The bulk of our performances are within the Filipino community. Sayang. Because many of them are professional grades. So I want to help. So what I mean by Kuya Germs, I want to be parang their freelance agent, or talent scout, para makita ang New Zealand and international music industry. And to be honest, I think, kasi usually, let's face it, Filipinos are not really entrepreneurial. Our thrust is more as professionals, as tradesmen, as employees, world class, but business is not our first thing, unlike ibang nationalities. And I think, well, what I see, most attempts are like in mga sari-sari store, mga restaurant, which is fine, but I don't really see us trying to push our talent on the professional commercial stage. Every Filipino home may karaoke. Impressed ang ating mga Kiwi, mga Aussie kaibigan, di ba? And every time there's a party, there's a Filipino, again, the sang. Di ba? But
that's true.
Our food is nice, but then it's a hard battle with the Malaysians, the Vietnamese, the Thai. But for those nationalities, sinong lamang sa pakanta? Tayo, di ba?
Of course.
So at least maybe you can help me find Phil Aussie talent that we could present, and then not just sa kapwang Pinoy, kasi may Battle of the Bands, or that's nice, pero it's parang useless in terms of really showing and showcasing our talent to the world. It's like meron tayong kandila, pero nakakulong sa closet. So it's pointless.
Kulang sa promotion. Sige, Amba, Gary, we'll try our best to hunt those performers, maybe showcase some of their videos, and then get them to submit those videos to you para makonsider sila sa inyong grand countdown.
Okay.
We'll try our best to look for those gems, mga hidden gems,
yes,
mga
very
Filipino
good.
talents.
Okay.
Yes.
How many more minutes do I have? Kasi I'm conscious of the time.
Yes, Amba, I want to focus on, Amar, do you have any more questions? Because I want to ask Amba other questions as well.
So far, ang last question ko tungkol sa promotion ng Rizalism and yung brand ng Filipino nationalism here in New Zealand. Kaya, ayun, Amba ang ating programa.
Okay. Well, actually, Sir Mar, pwede mo ikwento, but you see in now Sir Mar's screensaver, we have Knights of not just Wellington but Auckland. So in our Rizalism program, we are promoting establishment of chapters of the Knights of Rizal, and our flagship program is to introduce Rizal to our Kiwi friends and neighbors, but also to remind our kababayan of the life, times, and the works of Dr. Rizal and lahat ng ating mga pambansang bayani. So one of the concrete activities we undertook, and Mark can elaborate, is the Embassy and Knights jointly started Filipino language and culture programs sa mga schools. and that ties in with the embassy's program we call VAMBA and YAMBA, or Volunteer Ambassador or Youth Ambassador, where we cultivate and promote the leadership of young. So yung kabataan, which is high school, college age, bababa, are the YAMBA. University and adults are volunteer ambassadors, and maybe we could actually, it's a bit lengthy how to explain to be one, and maybe that can be the feature of another show.
Yeah.
Then this ties in with our sort of mother organization, which we established Philippines as Diplomatic League. We're also, well, maybe Sir Mark can elaborate, we're on the search for and to recognize outstanding Filipino graduates of year 13 and their parents. We have a standing invitation to submit for names to recognize the Filipino Kiwi frontliners who served na talagang during lockdown. And the deadline was November 30. Kaya lang, medyo konti-konti lang nag-submit. We're extending it indefinitely. And again, we can you can check the requirements on our website and Facebook page. We're preparing also for the quincentennial celebrations, the 500th anniversary of 1521, the coming of Magellan, the establishment of Christianity, one of the early assertions of our nationalism with Lapu-Lapu, and the circumnavigation, of course. So yun, we're also joining the Stop Violence Against Women global campaign. We're highlighting what can be done, including the White Ribbon campaign of New Zealand against domestic violence. And I'll just conclude that we need your help in promoting, which was kind of delayed because of the COVID, is we want to revive the friendship games that we had when kasama kami ni Sir Angel. We had a parang Olympics of OFWs, you had like Kuwait OFWs before Saudi. So we can create that spirit. We've been helped by a very strong OFW advocacy organization, the Good Hearts New Zealand Foundation. And they helped establish the Ambassadors Cup, which is a basketball league to help spread awareness of the Volunteer Ambassador Program, and also the idea of that we will be forming an all-star Filipino Kiwi basketball team that will play Australia. So you can help.
Yes.
Now
it's like you're breaking my heart every time there's a Australia versus New Zealand game, whether it's rugby, whether it's cricket or something else. So hopefully that's going to be something exciting.
Okay,
Look forward to that.
Last point is because of COVID, mahirap. Siguro kailangan namin ibuo ang basketball all-star. But I want to assure all the leagues, it'll be an open trial, open process, hindi lang limited sa Ambassadors Cup. We will take the best of the best, regardless of what league or cup process. But we will, and then badminton, volleyball would also follow. But we can start online because of the Queen's Gambit, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, we are forming we're almost complete in forming a youth Filipino Kiwi chess team. So help us create the Aussie counterpart, and if there's interest, maybe also an adult division. So yan muna po. Maraming salamat po.
Parang ang tahimik ng embassy, pero actually ang dami-dami yung ginagawa. Parang I can't imagine you doing your mobile, what you call that, mobile consultation, mobile visits, tapos ang dami pa mga initiatives and projects. And I'm glad that Mar is in the thick of things through the Order of Knights of Rizal. I'm so proud of Mar. He's a good friend, and I'm really excited for the many things that you are all doing in New Zealand. So I don't know whether Jamie has a question, but do you have a question, Jamie? No, not at this time.
Not at this time.
Okay, so just something more controversial. I know that in the many years na nandiyan ako, this is one question I think that a lot of Filipinos outside looking into New Zealand are wondering, how's the situation about students, international students that have come to New Zealand looking for a better future, pero merong mga issues around agencies, schools, alam nyo yon, I know this is controversial, but I need to share an update to my audience. So I wonder whether there are still instances of that, or over time hindi na po masyadong issue tong mga pangyayaring ito, or tuloy-tuloy pa rin. It's only because I know in Australia meron pa rin mga instances na ganito. I've been talking to Carol this morning, who's part of Migrante here in Australia. Like they do a lot of work around international students. Tell me, what's the situation in New Zealand at the moment?
We are Independent Podcast Network. We are Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate. Would you like to hear your brand while supporting quality podcasts? Contact us now at advertise@guerrillapodcastsyndicate.com.
Oh my God. Well, before we get to the my God, did you Google my name and my war against education trafficking?
I know. I've seen your Facebook post around that,
Oh.
Amba. So I'm sure you're very passionate about this topic.
Ang daming buwisit na mangloloko, sinungaling. And you have to be wary. Up to now, if you see somebody that any group or agency that claims study, work, live, most of the times it is a lie. It is a deceit. Most times. If you want to work, I have to say simpleng bagay, come on a work visa. Don't expect na katulad sa ibang bansa pwede ka mag-TNT. Hindi ganun kadali. This is the irony. It is very tough to get into the US, but, well, at least before the present administration, dali-dali lang mag-TNT. Sa New Zealand, and I guess Australia, medyo madaling makapasok, either as a student tourist, pero mahirap mag-TNT or to work under the table or to expect to get a work visa. And it's misleading kasi you're allowed to work a little bit as a student, parang practicum, pero hanggang dun lang. So the problem is when I hit, some of the illicit recruiters hit back at me, tinulfo ako.
Tinulfo kayo?
So, but,
OMG.
so, you know, because nasasaktan sila. But, you know, negosyo nila.
Of course, of course.
Well, you know, I don't have to go into, you just Google me. And I also appeared on the Radio New Zealand about the exploitation. Kasi problema sa mga Pinoy, hindi mahilig mag-research. Dali-dali lang. And then by the time nagbayad na sila sa mga recruiter, it's too late.
That's right.
So, number one,
nila ang kanilang mga lupain.
Yes. So what I was doing at the beginning of the year, just before COVID, was ganito is that if you come to study, just study. Don't expect to work. You could use education as a pathway. Siguro years ago, pero sa dami ng gumagawa nun, humigpit na ang New Zealand. So if, again, first thing is, if you come to New Zealand with the intention of working, get a proper work visa.
That's right.
Don't try the education to work pathway. It can work in certain rare circumstances, pero hindi basta-basta.
That's
Now,
right.
the other thing is, so if a school is legitimate and good, they will let you come without going through an agent. Kasi yung ibang lintik nitong mga school, diploma mill sila. You know, they're parang yung mga iba sa recto. Puwisit.
That's right.
The problema sa
Ganyan
New
din po ang
Zealand,
situation dito. Meron ding mga controversial schools dito na talagang diploma mills din, na talagang they just attract a lot of students. And of course, those students want the quickest way in.
Yeah.
So they think that they can easily survive. I think Jamie and I had one episode where we talked about the experiences of international students here in Australia at lahat-lahat ng mga pinagdaanan nila. But they all went through the legit pathway, pero hirap pa rin sila. So how much more yung mga napapapasok sa Australia at sa New Zealand through illegal, yun na yung terminology, illegal means na talagang they are misinformed and they are under the illusion na yung courses nila will lead to a proper job, but actually it doesn't lead to any pathway at all, not even to transition into a proper work visa. So I think that's another future topic that we might pursue, because rampant pa rin siya, and we need to continue to advocate for the right thing. You know, we need to continue educating our kababayans na they have to do it properly. Hindi yung kakatok-katok na lang sila sa atin pag talagang nag-aalanganin na yung sitwasyon. Di ba, Mar, there are instances in Kasakit before where we've helped people who have 10 days left before they are kicked out of New Zealand.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very sad situation and a very precarious one because we don't want na pabigat din tayo sa gobyerno and it's a sad reflection din ng nangyayari sa atin because we are blindsided by yung mga sweet and empty promises amba.
Yeah. But
Yung mga
bukod pa
failure
doon,
to deliver from the
yeah,
schools.
it's not just education, pati yung mga employers, I mean, yung work visa mismo, mga workers may problema. But another kind of problem, because you're supposed to be able to come, there was a Philippine-New Zealand agreement, walang fee. Yung iba, sumisingit pa rin ang fee, especially nagpapatong sila sa what we call pastoral care, meaning your board and lodging. And what they do is, yeah, technically the contract, siguro walang ganong klaseng bayad. But once they arrive, they are pressured to sign to pastoral care ng mahal-mahal, like parang sardinas sa isang kwarto and sa tirahan nila. And but the problem is many of the Pinoys who work are oftentimes, even from the provinces, it's the first time in a big city. Yung iba, hindi talagang taga Manila, taga province. They're so overwhelmed. They're pressured to sign and ayaw nila magreklamo. So we have to take up the cudgels for them. And the problem, okay, this is the irony of a very advanced and law-abiding country like New Zealand. Yung standard of evidence to prove kalokohan is very high. At the very least, kailangan pumirma sa reklamo, ayaw magpumirma ng mga Pinoy. And that's being exploited. So that's another thing is that one thing also, another kind of problem which we're encountering all the time is when you come to New Zealand as a visitor, New Zealand, unlike many other countries, they do not require you to prove you have medical insurance. So you have to take this undertaking. Let's say a typical story. Si Juan de la Cruz, kinumbida yung mga magulang niya to come and visit New Zealand. And gumawa siyang undertaking. Sagot niya lahat ng gastos. What? Okay. Heart attack. Or biglang kung aksidente, okay. Sagot ng we'd call ACC. Alam mo yung ACC, di ba?
Yes,
yung accident
yes,
coverage.
yeah.
But let's say it's not the accident, but yeah, because of an internal condition. Hindi sasagot ng New Zealand government yun. And then yung walang medical insurance. So, you have these families crying for help. They put up GoFundMe sites. They beg for us, but we cannot give assistance. That's not in our budget.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to make requests to Manila, but there's no guarantee. So that's one thing is that we've been pleading with the New Zealand government to require all visitors to produce evidence of health insurance. Very simple na bagay. I don't know about Australia, pero I think it might be...
every time my mom, when she was still alive, had to visit me here, talaga pong ang kanyang health insurance is hindi lang for 6 months for the whole duration of the time she's here. Kasi clear na clear sa Australia yan na hindi nila covered yon aside from nag-medical na siya, yung mga evidence na wala siyang mga diseases na banned dito sa Australia. So you can't survive here if you don't have your own medical insurance. So I really believe that tama po yun kasi my dad was a visitor in New Zealand when he died. So obviously hindi naman cargo siya ng New Zealand, cargo namin siya at cargo siya ng kanyang health insurance. My mom was here in Australia when she died. So thank goodness for her health insurance. At saka na-repatriate namin yung remains niya. So I was able to provide 2 funeral services for her. One here in Australia, and when her ashes were brought back to the Philippines, we had another round. Siguro po atakihin na rin ako sa puso if we were not covered medically. Paano ko mabasutustusan yung mga pangangailangan ng parents ko when they both passed away outside of the Philippines. So talaga pong marami talaga tayong nahirinig na horror stories, and I for one I have an experience of the importance of having your own health insurance. So really, it's a very interesting thing na over the years pala, and these things are still happening. So If there's a newbie, new person, new migrant in New Zealand na may mga naririnig na may mga ganyang experiences, papaano po sila mag-approach sa embassy, or how can the embassy facilitate help for them if it's not really part of your core service? Ano po ang pwede nilang maasahan na help, because after all, sa inyo sila unang kakapit
Okay.
for at the
Okay.
first instance.
Well, when in doubt, shoot us an email, wellington.pe@philembassy.org.nz, or send us a message, through Facebook Messenger sa aming Philippine Embassy New Zealand Wellington Facebook page. But then we see the message, we assign sa mga staff. Like if it's related to your work contract, dun sa polo. If it's like medyo agraviado, you mean like injury or something that's not related to work, sa aming assistance to nationals. If it's passport. If it's mga notarial, sa notarial. So, but many times, kung may problema, it's because the overseas, the OFW, the problem of the office is really part of the responsibility of the employer or the recruitment agency. So we help them pressure or at least inform. Kasi akala ng ibang manggagawa, everything sakop ng embassy po. No. Many times it's actually yung employer, and sometimes it's just a communications gap. It's not necessarily mean salbahe yung employer. It's probably just misunderstanding. Because that's another thing we had to crusade for, is that the English proficiency ng ibang workers. I think yung mga white collar, mga professional, okay, walang problema. In fact, in many times, mas magaling tayo mag-English kaysa mga Kiwi and Aussie, di ba? But yung mga blue collar, yung iba mahina, or they're intimidated. So we want to also encourage ating mga kabayan, especially those who are the working men and women, encourage them to improve their English, and hindi puro Pinoy teleserye or something. Magsanay sa local Aussie and New Zealand news, at least mga palabas. So I think that's actually an interesting thing, is we have to upgrade the English proficiency, plus yung use of internet. Kasi karamihan ng mga Pinoy marunong mag-Facebook message, pero hanggang dun lang. They don't know how to, or they're not comfortable or whatever looking at informative websites like Immigration New Zealand. Actually, nagtataka yung Kiwi, because when nireklamo namin, itong mga kababayan namin, they are being exploited, and they said, why don't they just comply to us? They can sign, yun. Unang-una, yung iba, even, we get these comments from ibang Pinoy, ay, amba, hindi kami marunong mag-online appointment booking. I was wondering, sinasabi lang nila dahil tamad, no? But I think some are just, first we have to admit, our website is not that easy. We're trying to always streamline it. Isa pang reklamo, hindi pwede tayo, we do not allow FPOS or online banking. And the problem is, akala nila, kasi ayaw namin. No, it's because of some stupid existing Philippine laws that prohibit us from using that. And so I've been urging, in fact, I urge somebody to make a petition sa change.org. Pressure our Congress to pass the laws to, allow COA and Department of Finance and Central Bank or whatever to allow. Kasi sagabal talaga, when they come to the embassy, we can only accept cash or bank draft.
Opo, that's true. Ganyan din na nangyari sa akin. I had to ask my friend to pay from the embassy office directly in cash, kasi nandito nga ako. I need a record of death from my father, dated by my brother. So mabuti na lang ang aking network. Pwede kong paandarin dyan. So nagtataka din kami, how can I not do bank transfer? Hindi daw allowed yun. So they only accept in cash. So yes, I agree na marami po tayong mga information, educational sessions. Marami tayong opportunities na pwedeng ipaintindi. And I'm really excited, if you want to come back to Samu't Sari, or maybe Mar, me and Labat can talk about these things in greater detail. Kung talagang kailangan ng mga kababayan natin ng suporta or pagpapaliwanag sa kanila on how we can serve them better. We
Tama.
can
And in
probably
fact,
do that again.
nagpapasalamat ako talaga because I think, also, hindi naman lahat nagbabasa yung Facebook ko or Facebook ng embassy or website. Mas sanay sila sa, well, if ever, like, well, I don't know if also ang podcast, but at least manood sa live or something like this sa Facebook or kung ano, no. But mukhang, if I may, it looks like it's already our time 6:51. I think
Yeah.
Labat is stuck because, he's going to be approached, I'm sure, for many late working problems, especially contract verification, employer, layoff. So if I may, I'll just go over what the points he would have liked to make.
Sure, please do.
Okay, so stress is that the government is awarding what we call the Dole AKAP assistance sa mga madaling salita, yung mga na-lay off at hindi nakatanggap ng assistance mula sa New Zealand government is a one-time $200 assistance. So just Google Dole AKAP Wellington and may website, Facebook page, how to avail yourself. Now, yung iba nagreklama, ay daming kailangan isagot, but we have to verify. Do you want just somebody, just walking like that? So Dole AKAP, and so far, as of last week, 162 had been able to avail themselves successfully. Pero may pera pa. But again, you have to demonstrate na hindi ka nakatanggap ng assistance from your employer or the New Zealand government. Yung talagang layoff yung hirap. Again, and that's the main thing. And then kami ni Labat, and sometimes just Labat, umiikot kami sa iba-ibang parte ng New Zealand to dialogue and meet with the workers. And our first one was actually sa Queenstown because, of course, dahil that is a tourism city, as you know, very beautiful, but depend on tourism. That was the hardest hit. But interestingly, ang dami nag-register with the New Zealand side na they might be laid off or they're hirap sila. Because again, at least New Zealand government is generous with assistance, even food assistance. Konti lang nag-apply sa amin. Because siguro yung impression ni iba, kung mag-register sa embassy, wala nang pag-asa at pauwi na sila. But I think in a way it's a good sign in the sense that may pag-asa pa. And actually, because of domestic tourism, we've been encouraging our kababayan in Auckland, Wellington, visit Queenstown. At least mas stimulate and mukhang gumagana uli ang Queenstown tourism. So we're glad. So actually, it's not as bad as we thought. But okay, just to sum, if you want to get a hold of Polo, best because usually you could Facebook message us at the embassy, Philippine Embassy, Wellington, New Zealand Facebook page, yung messenger, or you can also email Polo directly, polo.newzealand@philembassy.org.nz. And well, I don't want to steal the thunder also from Sir Mar, but also during the course of the COVID, we've the Knights of Rizal on their own, not has been able to distribute many food bags, food assistance. Pati Polo and the embassy, but more of again Knights of Rizal and Polo. But so that's a great partnership that we have. So yun muna. So the Dole AKAP, it's still available. Again, but if talagang laid off ka. And we have again a PAL flight. Now that's leaving December 18, but check with your travel agent or PAL mismo. But there are also regular commercial flights, Singapore Airlines via Singapore and Cathay Pacific via Hong Kong. So hindi naman masyadong problema umuwi. Of course, you just have to check the latest anong requirements sa quarantine, sa pag-uwi sa atin, etc. And then you can get that from our website or Facebook page.
Wow. Parang siksik-liglig ang ating program for today with Amba. I'm really enjoying this sort of conversation. I know. That's why I said to Mar, and even Labat said that we can make this as a regular thing starting 2021. We can iron out the mechanics. Are we going to do live? Para talagang there will be people watching us. We can do it in your Facebook page or we can do it in my Samu't Sari account. It doesn't matter, but as long as we continue to dialogue and inform
Tama.
our kababayans kung anong latest, maybe those details we can iron out over the Christmas break with Mar and I, brainstorming with your consultation and labat later on. So yun po ang ating plan. We're running out of time. Bagari and Mar and Jamie, I really thank you for taking your time today to be with me. I think this is a successful first Ugnayan and Damayan online public service show for Samu't Sari. And I'm pretty sure na out of the topics na na-pick up natin today, I can easily follow up. Himay-himayin pa natin yon at magkakaroon pa tayo ng sandamakmak na future episode. So today is just pahaging lang, parang pakiliti lang sa ating mga kababayan. Mar, any last words before we end the program?
So far, marami pa naman tayong magiging episode. So, ayun na lang hintayin natin. Thank you.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Any last words po sa ating mga tagapakinig and the viewers of our show?
Well, ating mga mahal na kababayan sa New Zealand, Pacific, and Australia, the Embassy and the Knights of Rizal and the Polos are here to serve you. Don't hesitate to contact us. But of course, magandang simula to, Mimi, with Samu't Sari and Jamie, and we look forward to mga susunod na kabanata. And we look forward to at least a monthly. But I see also this is a way we can bridge and unite our Kiwi and Aussie, Filipino, and Pacific communities. And we look forward to a happy and safer and sana COVID-free 2021. If we don't see each other till then, maligayang Pasko at manigong bagong taon. Stay safe.
Okay.
Thank you, Amba.
Thank
and
you.
Of course, looking forward rin ako na yung dream mo na maging si Kuya Germs ka. ay isa sa mga Christmas wishes na matupad. So thank you to all of you. We missed Labat Angel today, but don't worry guys, in the future there will be other episodes na makakasama natin siya. So this is Mimi again signing off for Samu't Sari. Don't forget to like my Facebook and my YouTube channel. Subscribe, click all to make sure that you're notified. Samu't Sari is a member of the GUERRILLA Podcast Syndicate. Make sure you also head on to the website of the GPS. There are other programs there that you can enjoy. And until then, guys, can we wave goodbye to our viewers? Thank you po sa inyong lahat. And then see you at the next episode.
Sana group picture.
Okay,
Pwede po. Jamie, can you organize that?
Sige po.
Para meron tayong remembrance.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, smile. One more. Okay po.
Okay, thank you everybody.
Okay, thank
you po sa
you.
inyong
Thank
lahat.
you.
Until the next episode.
Thank you, Amba. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you po.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to visit our website at www.guerrillapodcastsyndicate.com, where you can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends. You can also join the conversation with Guerrillas RV on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please consider on making a donation to help us keep making the podcast you love. If you have any questions, feel free to